Kayce's wife Monica died of cancer. And that's one of the only things this show did right. Monica was a complete drag on Yellowstone from start to finish, and her absence is something to be celebrated, even in a crappy show.
Monica! Monica!
Have you ever wanted to see an episodic, NCIS-style investigative crime drama set in the world of Yellowstone? Yeah, I didn't either. Especially one starring one of the few decent characters to survive the events of Yellowstone, who could have been used in a much better spin-off. Although, Marshals has made it pretty clear that rough-and-tumble Kayce Dutton doesn't really have too many sides worth exploring as a character, even if he is likable. Regardless of what anyone wanted to see in a spin-off, if anything after the way Yellowstone went, I might add, an episodic procedural investigative drama is what we got. You know the type of show. A lot of people sitting around a busy field office talking about the case while the camera spins around them until someone has a light bulb moment and enhances a photo to nail their guy in between sips of coffee and shuffling paperwork.
Enhance. Enhance. Enhance.
Or agents walking down an impossibly long and windy hallway in their office, which looks like a mix between an old barn and a craft brewery. Range justice and a fight to hold on to a family's land and legacy, traded in for a badge, bureaucracy, and basically bottomless bullshit. Of course, with some moments of real cow poking interspersed here and there. That's where the Yellowstone story decided to go with the spinoff. To be fair, they also did put out Dutton Ranch, a show that's a much closer spiritual successor to Yellowstone. But the honor of headlining that show, obviously, went to the chain-smoking shitstorm known as Beth Dutton, because of course it did. That's a different show for a different video, though. Marshals, on the other hand, had the wrong idea from the start, and it managed to mess up the formula along the way. Getting dragged down by endless subplots and lacking a strong enough narrative glue to hold the whole season together. Not to mention the very weird cliffhanger the season ended on. Sure, there was an explosion and a shootout in pretty much every single episode, but in a vacuum, set against a show dragged down by its episodic nature, it just comes off as a desperate attempt to make the show more interesting than it actually is. And we'll talk more about what made Marshals a bad spinoff and a bad show in its own right after we talk a little bit about what happened in Season 1. So here's your spoiler warning for the 3 people worried about having the show spoiled. Marshals picks up some time after the events of Yellowstone, with Kayce and Tate living at East Camp, the last remnant of the Duttons' land. Since Yellowstone, Kayce's wife Monica died of cancer. And that's one of the only things this show did right. Monica was a complete drag on Yellowstone from start to finish, and her absence is something to be celebrated, even in a crappy show.
Monica! Monica!
And in the aftermath, Kayce struggled to move on from Monica's ghost and the ghosts of his family's past. One day, one of Kayce's old SEAL buddies from the teams shows up in Montana working a case as a U.S. Marshal. After he ropes Kayce into helping traverse the land and work the case, he deputizes Kayce into the U.S. Marshals. Kayce joins a team made up of Cal, his old CO from the SEALs, Cruz, a city girl having trouble adjusting to Montana, Belle, a former local with a dark history with the area, and Miles, a tribe member from the Broken Rock Reservation. They take on new cases week after week, the first several of which have nothing to do with the U.S. Marshals. Like investigating a bombing and an assassination attempt, providing security for a protest, and searching for a downed helicopter in the mountains. Now, U.S. Marshals, for those who don't know, protect the judiciary and courthouses, hunt down federal fugitives and witnesses, serve subpoenas and court orders, transport prisoners and witnesses, and manage and sell seized assets. So basically nothing in the first 4 episodes of this show had them doing. And it took me 2 minutes to look that up. 2 minutes the creators of this show, named Marshals, apparently didn't have. Eventually the show gets on track and has the team doing actual marshal work, but the first few episodes gave us cases that didn't even come close to falling under the purview of U.S. Marshals. Now, when I was talking about some of the subplots the show carried through its episodes, I don't think I really did the sheer number of them justice. In no particular order, you had Kayce wrestling with Monica's death, his past as a Dutton, and his past as a Navy SEAL. Belle's connection to the area and some of the locals, and her gambling problem, assassination plots against Chief Rainwater, conflicts rising around potential mining operations on Broken Rock lands, and a fentanyl epidemic hitting the reservation, Cal trying to connect with his estranged daughter, his will-they-won't-they relationship with Belle, and his possible cancer diagnosis, Cruz wanting to leave Montana and get back to the city, and her short but fiery fling with Kayce's old SEALmate Garrett, who also had his own little arc where he shows up looking to escape the ghosts of his own past before dying from a fire, Miles trying to date Cal's daughter while also sticking up for the res, whilst also being used as a pawn by Chief Counting Cards, the head marshal looking to take Kayce's badge at every turn because he's long known the Duttons and how they operate, and Kayce considering selling East Camp to a wealthy wannabe rancher named Weaver. And they found some time for Marshals cases here and there. It's like they looked at the 13 episodes they'd have to work with this season and thought they'd just be able to triple the number of subplots you find in a normal show. But in the end, none of them got the time or depth they needed. And they were oddly paced too, with the subplots surfacing, then being shoved to the back burner for 5 episodes, and none of them could be considered an overarching storyline that carried the season start to finish. One of the major flashpoints of the season revolved around an old family rival of the Duttons known as the Cleggs, whose patriarch raises a militia, kidnaps Cruz, and live streams his diatribe against the federal government. Another had to do with young women from the reservation disappearing into trafficking networks. And another centered on multiple, sporadic assassination attempts on Chief Drainwater. Which brings us to the peculiar ending of the season where a band of international mercenaries make one final, massive attempt on the Chief's life. Kayce and the other marshals fend them off at East Camp, but it's revealed that they were hired by Weaver, the wealthy wannabe rancher who's been courting Kayce to buy East Camp and who's currently boarding a jet with Kayce's son Tate heading off on an interstate fishing trip. So I guess Weaver was behind it the whole time, despite the show not giving the audience a discernible reason or even a clue as to why. Cal and Belle are also caught in an ambush at the end as well, and with that baffling cliffhanger, the first season comes to an end. As you can probably tell, there is simply way too much going on with this show, and just about none of it was good. The show was too busy throwing new cases in every episode and bringing in new subplots to allow any of the other storylines to really develop and rise to prominence. Marshals went far out of its way to keep everything extremely surface level. In fact, it makes the show pretty damn boring to watch because there are 8 full episodes before anything resembling connective tissue between all the episodes starts to form. I think they thought if they just kept the storylines coming hot and fast, no one would notice how shallow it all is. And if they threw in enough shootouts and explosions, they might just get away with it. And let's talk about that for a second. This first season had more bombings than an Iranian nuclear facility and more shootouts than a summer weekend in Chicago. Marshals made West Montana look like the most poppin' place on Earth. But we probably shouldn't expect anything less in a show under the Yellowstone umbrella at this point. That Yellowstone DNA produced the kind of procedural show where, when you can't get anywhere with an investigation, violence is always the answer. All of the characters brought with them a 747's worth of baggage, which would almost exclusively rear its ugly head at the height of a life or death situation, at a time where no rational, capable person would ever air their dirty laundry. Like when Miles was running Overwatch on a hostage rescue situation, and he tried to bring up his relationship with Cal's daughter.
Kayce, you have about 20 meters
before you're out of my line of sight.
Told you I didn't know Maddie was...
Yeah, we're not talking about that here.
And there were just so many ridiculous, soapy moments like that.
Your dad was the mine CEO? She's my mother. I'm a grandmother.
The show was packed with stupid dialogue like this. And other just stupid scenes like this one, where 4 marshals make some absurd approach against a massive, guarded compound in the wide open. Or that time 3 marshals clear out a violent criminal biker gang rally of thousands on foot all by themselves. They even took the risk of assaulting one of them on the way through, and not a single biker takes issue with this. And in terms of subject matter and manufactured drama, the show was all over the map.
The casino wants the $20,000 you owe.
I'll get you the money.
So you got international mercenaries going after Rainwater?
Compliments of the cowboy.
12 seconds later.
Just all over the map. Marshals was just stupid and unbelievable the whole way through, just like so many other Yellowstone and Taylor Sheridan products. And somehow, it all ended with a twist/cliffhanger that managed to be worse than everything leading up to it. Weaver never kept his want of Kayce's land a secret, as Weaver desperately needs more land for his ranching ambitions. But how that ties into killing Kayce's teammates and trying to kill Chief Slot Machine is a total mystery. You can chalk it up as a twist, but it's really only a twist because the show never bothered to lay out any kind of roadmap as to how someone would get there, logically. It's just totally out of left field, and it's not the kind of twist that makes you want to know more. It's the kind that just makes you want to change the channel. Lucky for them, Marshals was already renewed for a second season coming later this year, despite the show's reception. So they get a chance to resolve this awkward cliffhanger and maybe even explain how the hell the story even got to that point. Anyway, I could go on, but after 13 episodes of this show, I really don't want to spend another minute on it. Marshals got appropriately hosed by critics and audiences alike. Viewers on Rotten Tomatoes have the show at an abysmal 27%, while it's getting a somewhat generous 4.3 on Metacritic. For me and most everyone that tuned into Marshals, the show is a definite hate watch that you shouldn't waste your time on. But all that matters are the ratings, unfortunately, and Marshals still found its way all over the Nielsen charts, which led to its immediate renewal. And while I don't really want to come back to Marshals for a second season, here at HateWatchers, I watch it so you don't have to. So when Marshals comes back for season 2, I'll be back as well with my stick to pay that dead horse a visit. Did you have higher hopes of seeing Kayce back on the range? How long do you think they'll keep the ghost of Yellowstone alive? Let us know in the comments below. And remember to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to HateWatchers for reviews of other current shows and movies. Thank you for bothering to look up what falls under the US Marshals purview with me today, unlike the creators, and I'll catch you on the next one.